Hey everyone, Jason Hill here, and a couple weeks ago I went into the kitchen and I made some homemade mac and cheese for my wife and family, and they absolutely loved it. I posted a picture of it on my Facebook and people went crazy wanting to know the recipe, so I figured, well, I better get around and get a video done on this because this is something you're going to want to make. Let me show you how we do it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use the traditional elbow macaroni, and I've got a pound here. You're going to need 6 cups of milk, followed by 4 cups of shredded. I like to use a sharp cheddar, 1.5 cups of fresh grated parmesan, and we're going to throw in a couple of slices of American cheese. We're going to make American cheese great again. Over here we have 6 tablespoons of butter and a 1/3 cup of flour for our roux. Seasoning, you're going to do a teaspoon of white pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne, and I'm throwing in some jalapeños, 2 sliced, 1/2 pound of partially frozen bacon, because I'll show you how it's easier to dice when it's partially frozen. 1 medium-sized leek, which I've already diced half of it, but I'm going to show you too what you need to do when you work with leeks. Okay, let's go. All right, I've already had 4 quarts of water boiling rapidly. Throw in a couple of pinches of salt, and I like to add a couple of drops of olive oil that helps keep the pasta from sticking while it's cooking. And we'll get our pasta in there, give it a little stir, break it apart, and it's definitely going to boil over medium-high. I'm at a high altitude. My water only boils about 208 degrees Fahrenheit, so it takes a little longer for me to cook off pasta and stuff, boil things. All right, let's go ahead and dice up our bacon and slice up the leeks. Okay, pop this in the freezer for about 20 minutes, and it's just easier to slice or dice your bacon after it's partially frozen so it's not all slimy and running all over your cutting board. So I just make some strips, and then I just take my knife and do little small dice like this. You probably noticed I'm not using my garlic shallot puree in this recipe. I'm using a leek, which is a part of the garlic and onion family. One thing is you want to cut the root off, and you want to make sure these layers, there's lots of dirt that gets trapped in there, so you want to rinse those out really good. And then to cut them, just stack the layers back in there. You can kind of go down the middle or over to the side if you want it a more diced look, or you can just cut them like they were in half, and you could have like a half moon cut. But there they are. They're wonderful, wonderful to use in soups, sauces. I love leeks. Okay, so definitely cook your pasta according to the manufacturer's suggestions. I always like mine a little al dente. You don't want it mushy. So we're going to drain these now. They are done. All right, the pasta's drained. It's time to saute our bacon. Let's get our leeks in there. And of course our jalapeno, fresh. Okay, our bacon, jalapeno, and leek mix is pretty much done. Try and get those little bacon bits a little crispy. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn off the heat, fish out the mix, set it in a separate bowl. Drain as much of the fat as you can. All right, I left a little bit of the bacon drippings in the pan, so let's go ahead and make up the roux. Okay, I got the pot back on medium. We're going to put in 4 tablespoons of butter, followed by our just about a 1/3 cup of flour. Usually when you make a roux, you're doing equal parts fat and flour to weight. But a lot of times you'll see people say, 2 tablespoons of flour, 2 tablespoons of butter. And we're not going to really make a dark roux here. We're going to do it more like a blonde. So it's not going to take very long. And you're going to want to smell the aroma as the roux is cooking. Of course, you'll get a little bacon aroma, but you also want to smell that flour cooking, which is kind of has that nutty aroma. All right, after a good 4 minutes or so, we're going to slowly whisk in our 4 cups of milk. That's what we're going to start with. And you want to keep whisking this so you don't get these lumps to form. And you can go ahead and pour in maybe like first 2 cups. Take a little break from the pouring and concentrate on that whisking to make sure your lumps aren't going to form. So let's continue. And we're going to bring this to a simmer. It's going to thicken up a little bit. It's not a real thick sauce, because once you put the cheese in there, that's going to also thicken it up. And while your sauce is simmering, let's go ahead and melt down 2 tablespoons of butter. And we're going to add our 3/4 cups panko breadcrumbs. This is going to be our little toasty topping. All you're really going to do is just melt this down, coat the breadcrumbs with this melted butter. We're going to go ahead and start adding our cheese. This is our grated Parmesan, about 1.5 cups. I have 4 cups of the shredded cheddar. And then of course our Deli Deluxe American cheese. Oh my gosh, we are almost done. So now we need to add our little seasoning and our jalapeno bacon and leeks. Let's drop our leek bacon and jalapeno mixture in there. And I did drain off some of that bacon fat that we saw in there earlier. I'm going to stir that in. And then next we're just going to add our teaspoon of white pepper and a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne. Cayenne does have the heat, of course, but when you use it in little amounts like this, it actually helps bring the flavors of everything else together. It's a great enhancer and a way to add a little heat too. All right, we're almost ready to serve, but before you do, you want to give it that final taste test. Get yourself a little tasting spoon. Cheese, of course, adds sodium or salt. So does your bacon. But I always keep a little bit of salt on hand just for that one last little pinch. It doesn't take much. Okay, I serve these in a individual crock. You could also do it in a casserole if you like and put those breadcrumbs on top, pop it in the oven, brown up those breadcrumbs. Okay, I pulled some of my drained pasta, and while it was draining, I also sprinkled a little more olive oil in there to keep it from sticking. Got about 4 cups in there or so, but this is all just by the eye. We're gonna ladle in some of our sauce, and you just put as much as you want in there just to get the consistency. I usually do about 1 cup to 4 cups of noodles. Just make sure you coat it really, really well. Yeah, this is a very healthy serving. A little bit there. A couple of tablespoons. Since I'm only doing 1, just got that on boil. Put that underneath there. Of course, it's preheated, so it's only going to take about a minute. All right, I like to garnish with a piece of bacon, some fresh jalapeno. All right, the moment I've been waiting for always is the tasting. I'm gonna get myself a nice, good bite. Mmm. 3 cheeses, bacon, butter, jalapeno, those toasted breadcrumbs. This is a great comfort food meal to make. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. And as always, thanks for tuning in.